Hello and welcome to DEI Advisors. My name is Lan Elliott on behalf of DEI Advisors. And today I'm really pleased to have Thom Geshay on with us. Thom is the president and CEO of Davidson Hospitality Group. And if you aren't familiar with his numerous accomplishments, I hope you go to our website so you can learn a bit more about him. But let's go ahead and dive into it. Welcome, Thom.
Hi, Lan. How are you?
I am doing well. Always happy to see you.
Well,
I
thank you
always
so
see
much.
a smile on your face, which makes me smile too. So it's always good.
Well, it doesn't pay not to attack every day with positivity, right?
That's right. That's right. Speaking of positivity, I mean, you've had a very interesting career journey. And I'd love if you could share some of the inflection points in your career and perhaps some of the factors that you think were instrumental in your success, if you would.
Sure, absolutely. Before jumping right in, I just want to thank you for inviting me to this interview. What you and David are doing at DEI Advisors is incredible. And I look at the list of all the folks you've interviewed so far, and I'm honored to be amongst them. But to answer your question, I think we'd need to dedicate an entire episode to that. If we went through it, now 35 years in, it has been a long, interesting career. But what I'll do is let me see some of the key points along the way that were meaningful in my development. So my career in hospitality started, like many in our business did, as an accident. I took a summer job as a bellman at the age of 17, really to make some money before college. My intent was to be an engineer. My plan was to be an engineer. My father and brothers were engineers, so that's where I was going, and get that degree and follow my plan. But I was bitten by the hospitality bug, really, and that sort of changed everything that I was going to do. So that those early years were formidable for me as I worked my way up through the ranks from bellman to front desk to the food and beverage side. I was a cook and dishwasher and banquet setups. I was a bar back, a barman, a bartender, a DJ, did all those things. But really, if you're looking for sort of key inflection points in the career, the first big one for me was really the gentleman that was a general manager of the hotel I worked at. All those jobs I did sort of rising through the ranks on the property level, long before I thought about being in the corporate office for Davidson. All those things happened under sort of the guidance of one general manager. His name was Greg Adams. He really took an interest in me personally, and he sort of poured into me. He became someone that I looked up to. To this day, I call him my mentor, but he and I spent a lot of time together. After I worked my way up and did all these different positions while I was in college, actually. After I graduated, got my engineering degree, went to work at IBM. And frankly, I was bored to tears with the engineering work. So what I thought my plan was, I'd spent so much time preparing for, was something I really didn't enjoy, and didn't enjoy nearly as much as I did in the hospitality space. But Greg called me. I'd only been on the job 6 months at IBM. He called me and tried to entice me back as a bar manager. I played that through in my head. He knew my father because my father used to come in and have breakfast at our hotel all the time. And I said, yeah, Greg, I'm going to tell my father that I'm going to be a bar manager after I get my engineering degree, going to work for IBM. That's not going to go over well. So Greg was creative and said, hey, we'll call you beverage director. How about that? And I thought, well, I could be a director. That's not bad. At 21 years old, that sounds good. But the important thing was he took a real interest in me. He convinced me to follow my passion and not my plan. I spent 10 years in operations and did a lot of moves around there. And during all those moves I had with the company, I became interested in real estate. Spent about 15 years in real estate with the company. And then another one of my mentors, John Belden, whom you know as well, asked me to go back into operations as COO. I wasn't looking or asking for this, but John knew that I needed some higher corporate level experience to get where I am today. And so, when you look at sort of those inflection points that you call them through your career, what contributes to success, I'd tell you that really it's about someone took an interest in me in my career and allowed me to follow and chase my passion. I've always been really curious and willing to move. And so when someone from the corporate office or one of my leaders said, "Hey, would you consider this?" I always said yes. The answer was always yes, and I figured out how to make it work. And then just work hard. I wanted to prove myself at every phase and at every job. And you don't want to move or be promoted until you can say you've really mastered what you're doing. So those would be sort of the key points in my career as I've come through Davidson over the last 35 years.
Such great factors, right? Between curiosity and following your passion and working hard and having mentors, which I definitely want to dig into in a little bit. But I am curious, you've had a few different roles, and were there certain skills that you decided, you know what, as you got maybe into corporate life or further down your career, that you said, I need to develop a new set of skills than what got me this far?
Oh man, once again, this answer alone could take an entire episode, because there's a lot of those you realize as you go through your career. You don't know a lot, and seeing other people do things well and learning from them and wanting to emulate them is something that we all need to do. But there is something I can point to that took me a long time to learn, and frankly, if I'm being honest with you, I'm sort of still working on it every day. And that's having the ability to step back and allow the team and the people around me to execute on a plan. I think when we're young in our careers and we're rising through the ranks and we're trying to grow our career, the day-to-day work that we do is all about doing the doing. You're assigned a task and you want to execute it. And so much of our careers were measured by what we physically and mentally do. So it becomes necessary to execute a task, and we get very good at it, with repetition and over time. But as your position grows and your responsibilities grow, frankly, it becomes not possible to do all the doing. And you have to really learn how to teach other people to do some of those tasks and then trust them to do it. And you got to get out of the way and let them do their job. You'll often hear someone say, "Oh, it's just faster and easier for me to do it myself than it is to teach someone else how to do it. And then I know it gets done right anyway." I think we all fall into that over time when we're good at something or when we do something. And having the trust to give that off to someone else was really hard to do. But the problem is with the attitude, if you keep that attitude, I'll just do it myself, then you become the limiter on your company's effectiveness, because the company can only go as fast as you go. And so you have to do that. It's healthy for the organization. It's great. It teaches other people how to do things. And frankly, you get better at what you need to do by stepping away. So it's necessary sometimes to slow down in order to speed up. So I've had to develop that skill of letting go, stop trying to do everything myself, and then trust the team around me. And in doing that, the team's a lot more effective.
Yeah, I agree. That was something I had to learn as well when I first started leading a team. And I think it was Jack Welch who said the sign of a leader is someone who can move from being an individual contributor to leading a team and teaching them to do what you can do. And I think part of that is maybe surrounding yourself with really smart people, which I love surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me.
Absolutely.
And then you, like you said, go slower so you can all go faster, right? To bring them along and help them learn how to do it. It's always going to be faster if you do it yourself, but there aren't enough yous to get everything that needs to get done. And it's such a gift to younger people or people who want to grow their skills to be able to be trusted to learn and grow as well.
100%. It shouldn't be a hard concept, but I think it just is. I think we all get in our heads sometimes, and that ability to let go is great. And to your point, it's kind of a gift to the younger folks that are trying to learn and go. Now they feel like they have a bigger responsibility.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about taking risks, because you don't get to where you are today without taking some risks. Sounds like one of the risks you had to take was going back and telling your family that you were going to become a beverage director. But I'm curious about how you approach risks. How do you prepare yourself mentally to do that?
Yeah, risk is great. this is at Davidson. We have 7 core values, and one of our core values is greatness requires risk. The truth is, we all learn so much more by our failure than we do by our success. I think it's true in life as it is in business. I remind my kids of this all the time. I mean, you learn a lot more in a loss on the soccer field or the basketball court than you do in a win. And frankly, this is where I feel really blessed to have spent so many years with Davidson, because the way our core values are derived here and the beliefs that we have, our culture here supports taking some risks. And truthfully, if you wait till you're 100% sure to make a decision on any decision you make, you're never going to make a decision. So there's a certain amount of risk you take every time you make a decision. And frankly, timing and speed is also a factor when making a call on something. If you wait till you gather 100% of the data, it might be too late. Your competitor will have done something, or you'll have lost a deal, or you'll have missed something that was important because you're waiting for 100% certainty. So to a certain degree, we take risks all the time in the decisions we make. What we do here, and we talk about it a lot because it is one of our core values, but it has to be sort of a safe place for people to take those risks. Now, we don't encourage recklessness, but if you've done your homework and you're thoughtful about it, you can take risks and understand what comes from it. We make it safe. If people make a decision and they take a chance on something that doesn't work out, how you treat them when it goes wrong is really important, because that creates the psyche to how they're going to react the next time. So we want to encourage people to take risks, but if it doesn't work, you have to be supportive. You have to analyze it, say, okay, what could we have done differently? What would we do better next time? But you can't chide them for taking a risk. You asked for an example. I'll give you one that's very recent and sort of top of mind. But in 2020, right after the pandemic hit, most third-party managers and all the brands were laying off a lot of people. We didn't know what was going to happen in the industry, and it was just a very uncertain time. It was sort of this fight for liquidity. What we're going to do? We had contingency plans for everything except our revenue going to zero. So everybody was scrambling, and the easy thing to do really was cut all your costs, which in a lot of companies is labor, and try to survive that way. Well, coming off of 2019, where the industry had 3.5% unemployment, pre-pandemic, it was really hard to find good people. And so we were struggling to find people before the pandemic, as everybody was in our industry. Well, we noticed, in early 2020, something that we hadn't seen in years. And that was a lot of our competitors and the brands had laid off a lot of people. There was a ton of great talent on the market that we were just looking for 6 months earlier and could not find. And now it was there in droves. And so we kind of looked at ourselves and said, hey, this is a moment in time where perhaps everybody is right in cutting costs and cutting people and slashing the corporate overhead. But we've come through a lot of these before in 2020 and 2021 and 2008. We've done this before. We know we'll come out of the back end of it. We always know we're going to need good talent. So we actually added about 20 people to our corporate staff in 2020. And thank goodness we did. We needed all of them to get through the pandemic. Not surprisingly, we had 2 of our best growth years in 2020 and 2021, when we had all the services and all the resources and the people in place to support all our owners, when a lot of other folks did not. So was it safe or advised to do that? Probably not. We were looking at losing a lot of money. That's not the right time to add staff. We took a risk, knowing that we'd been there before, been through it before, and we'd lived the consequences one way or the other, and it worked out in our favor, but we took that risk.
Yeah, I love that it was really a calculated risk, right? Because you knew that it was hard to find great people. And when you saw great people available at that one moment in time, you took a risk to be able to hire them. And that allowed you to bounce back much faster than a lot of other people who were scaling up and hiring people at a time that you were moving quickly.
100%. We couldn't find them today. It'd be impossible to get the talent today because we're virtually fully employed. So now it may have cost me my job if it didn't work out and the pandemic lasted longer and we had these massive losses. I wouldn't be with an interview today. So So risk can also go the other direction, but that one worked out okay.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a risk that maybe didn't go in the other direction, because you had mentioned earlier that you learn more from your setbacks actually than your successes. Do you have an example of something that didn't go the way you had hoped, but turned out to be a good learning, or it turned out well in the end, even though you didn't see it at that moment in time?
Come on, Lane. You think I've made mistakes? Geez, it's just about all I do. I make a whole lot more mistakes than I do things right. I make mistakes every day and learn from them. An example, one particular example comes to mind. Back in the late 90s, I was a young deal guy. I was on our business development team. I'd only been in the business development team for a few years coming out of operations. But I had done a few deals, and so far they were all going well. And I was feeling pretty good about it. Like I was learning the trade. I was learning what I was doing, and I felt pretty good about it. But sort of due to my lack of experience in the business, I got a little ahead of myself, and I pursued a deal that I probably shouldn't have. I found this deal where the primary driver was basis, and not really a sound business plan. I won't mention the hotel or the market. I don't want to offend anybody. But we bought a hotel for about $15,000 a key. We spent about $30,000 a key on the renovation. So we're all in for about $45,000 a key. That's a low basis. And I can remember saying to myself, we're in this so cheap, we just can't lose. I mean, I uttered those words, and I was a deal advocate for this, and I was pushing it on the investment committee and telling them why and all this other. Well, what I learned was there's always a reason that real estate is inexpensive. And there's never a shortcut to doing the full underwriting and understanding it, all the ins and outs of the deal. Always run the downside scenario, because anything can happen. Timing is so important to every transaction that we do, and it's hard to factor that in when you do it. So I really looked at that deal through one lens, and that was, it's cheap. How can we lose? We ultimately got all our money out with a little profit, but it didn't come anywhere near the underwriting that I had put together. And to this day, it's been the worst deal of my career.
What did you learn from that? Run the downsides, obviously.
Yeah, you got to run the downside, but listen, there's always factors you can't take into account. And when we look at real estate deals, we do it based on a sound business plan. There's got to be an improvement in the operations that has to happen. There has to be an improvement through a repositioning or rebranding, through a renovation of some sort. Some dynamic happening in the market that is important. Every deal, like every stool, has sort of four legs to it. And for a very sturdy seat, you want to have all four of those legs solid. That deal really had just one factor to it that was really attractive. All the others I had to sort of manufacture, and I didn't put as much weight into them because I thought just being inexpensive would be enough. We'd get out of it and do fine. But that's not always the case. The timing wasn't perfect. The market wasn't perfect. There were some changes that happened there. The asset, frankly, had more scars than I believed it did. And so while we made a small profit, it didn't come anywhere close to our underwriting. So you always have to be thorough and never buy a deal just because it's cheap. There's usually a reason.
Great advice. Absolutely. One of the things I think you do particularly well is developing a network, because, Thom, we've known each other for a long time. I always see you with a smile pretty much every time I see you. But one of the things that's wonderful about our industry is that people come into hospitality and they tend to stay for a long time. So our relationships last, not just 6 months or a couple years. They tend to last decades. And I won't say how long we've known each other, but it's a good long time. And I love that working relationships can become friendships in our industry. But you're such a great networker. How do you network in a way that feels authentic to you? Because not everybody is super comfortable doing that.
Yeah, networking is such a vital part of our business, in probably any business. I've spent my career in hospitality, but I imagine in any business you're in, networking is important. But what makes it so important in hospitality, and you mentioned it, we're a very small industry. And so we cross each other's paths a lot. And I think that's what makes building a strong network, more critical to success in what we do. It's important in every facet of our business. So, on the operations side, it's important to build good relationships and a strong network of talent, because when you're in operations, you're always looking to, you need to replace, you need to find, fill an empty position, find a general manager, a director of sales, or someone. There's always a position that you need to fill, and having a strong network allows you to, get the word out and find somebody. On the real estate side, and you have done this so successfully through your career as well, but understanding and having good relationships gives you access to data, gives you knowledge, market knowledge, insider info, if you will, on deals that may happen. And I did it really purposefully younger in my career, especially when I was new in business development. I didn't know anybody. John Belden, Steve Marvel were our business development team, and they did all the conferences. They kind of knew everybody. I didn't know anyone because I had been in operations. So I was always the last to leave every one of the broker parties at the events. I would stay late and make sure I met everybody, or at a brand event or whatever it was. I wanted to talk to as many people as I could. And I'll put a plug in here for one of the other speakers that you guys have highlighted, Stacy Silver. She teaches a class at Cornell. It's called the Networking Mindset. I'm a mentor for her for a class. She aligns professional mentors with each of the students in the class. Because there's a lot of book smart students, just brilliant, talented book smart students that are really fearful of speaking to strangers or speaking in a large group. And the class that she's put together helps teach them tips on how to improve that. But I think when you recognize that, sometimes who is just as valuable as what you know, then it becomes a vital skill to have. And so you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position, walk into a room, know yourself, know the 3 or 4 things that are important about you. And then I heard this the other day. But when you're in those kind of settings, be interested, don't be interesting. Don't go in and talk about yourself, but go in and talk to people, ask them about themselves. If you're genuinely trying to get to know people, they will open up, because most people like to speak about themselves. And so I love to learn about people, love to know people. And I don't think you can have enough friends or people in your network. Only good things happen when you rub elbows with more people. And so I encourage everybody to, when you're in those environments, just get a couple of good questions in your mind that you want. Know the 3 or 4 things that make you and yourself are important, and work them into tie those together. And after 35 years, the network becomes pretty diverse.
How one goes about doing that, because there's definitely a right and a wrong way to do it. And I'm curious what tips you might have for people who are looking for a mentor or champion.
Yeah. This is something I'm passionate about and believe in 100%, because it's not an exaggeration to say I would not be with Davidson doing what I love were it not for the mentors that helped me along the way. I wouldn't be here talking to you today if it weren't for that. A lot of people have helped me in my career, and it is as important as anything I've learned or done is what I've been able to learn from those that are around me. The people that have gone before us in the jobs that we have and the companies we work for and the positions we find ourselves in, they've got a lot of knowledge. They made a lot of mistakes. They learned a lot of things. We owe it to ourselves to sort of carry that on and use some of that knowledge. We've used the word, you and I have used the word many times here today, but curiosity and interest are really vital to establishing that mentorship relationship. If there's someone you want to learn from, ask them questions. I said it earlier, but when you act interested, don't try to be interesting. Act interested in the person you're talking to. They'll pour back into you, and then continue to be curious. Find people that are doing something that you want to learn from. Someone that you want to emulate. Someone that you've seen or have an interest in, or or have a passion for what they're doing, ask them questions. They'll want to give you feedback. And also the relationship that develops as you try to get to know somebody. Mentor is it's a great word of honor. Actually, when I speak of John or Steve or Greg, it's with incredible respect. They're my mentors. They've taught me so much. But for them, there's also this feeling and gift of giving back. When I'm mentoring someone, I feel equally as good being able to share all my years of experience with someone and help them maybe shortcut a little bit. Over time, you'll build that relationship where they're doing a lot of teaching and you're doing a lot of learning. But you mentioned having champions or mentors and what that means to advance your career. I think that as our careers change, when we're in different phases of our careers, we need our mentors in different ways. Early in my career, I spoke about Greg Adams. I wasn't expecting to be in hospitality. I probably wouldn't be were it not for Greg, because I was an engineer, I was at IBM, and that was going to be what I did. The fact that he took an interest in me, spent the time with me, and kind of poured into me, I loved him and respected him. He pulled me back into the business, and he gave me my foundation in it. During my career, it changed. I talked about moving into business development. Steve Marvel was instrumental to that. I know you know Steve well. I got a great Steve story. My first business development trip, we were in the airport, and I hadn't done a lot of traveling because I'd been a general manager, and so I was just at a property, and so I was doing one of my first business trips with Steve. We were going out to underwrite a hotel, and we're standing in the gate to board the plane, and I looked at Steve. He's standing there. I said, "Hey, I got a question for you." He said, "What's that?" I said, "What is due diligence?" Like I didn't know what the term due diligence meant. And he looked at me and rolled his eyes and says, "You're kidding, right?" Well, we get on the plane. Of course, I'm an early traveler. So I'm like in 44, whatever, A by the window in the back. Steve's upgraded to first class because he's been traveling a lot. So he's got his upgrade. He's sitting up front. We all sit down on the plane. And right before the plane takes off, here comes Steve schlepping back with his backpack, and looks at the guy sitting next to me in the middle seat back in row 44 and says, "It's your lucky day. You're going to first class. I got to teach this guy a few things." He sat in the back with me. We flew to the West Coast on that flight, and he taught me what due diligence was. But at that point, that was an important part to me. But then later in my career, John Belden, I mentioned, and John is still a dear friend, and he and I talk every day, and he's coaching me today. But in the senior level positioning, as I was trying to, grow my career at more senior level, I've been with the company a long time, but moving into the C-suite, John was important to me at that phase of my career, put me in a position, frankly, against my better judgment, so I could learn the skills necessary to get to the job that I have today. So those are good mentors. They've helped me out, but different phases of your career, you need your mentors in a little different way.
Yeah, I think that's really great to call that out, and that your mentors can change. You were lucky to have mentors that stayed for most of your career, but you could also have different mentors for different stages of your career as well. So
That's
it's
right.
wonderful that you stayed in touch with them.
John and Steve are still here.
Excellent. That's a good thing.
It is. Right.
One of our favorite questions at DEI Advisors is, what advice would you give to your younger self? Because we think this has a lot to do with self-reflection. And I would say for myself, it's changed over time. I would give my younger self different advice, hopefully better advice over time. But I'm curious right now, what advice would you want your younger self to know?
Get into financial management, not hospitality, man. No, I'm kidding. Just teasing.
Don't be an engineer.
Don't spend 4 years getting an engineering degree you're not going to use. I think what I would say is take risks early in your career when there's less to lose. I think it's important to remember that, hospitality is not brain surgery. It's important that we take our work very seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. And travel. We learn so much when we get out of our everyday environment, and we learn and understand other people and other cultures. Don't wait for those experiences. Again, when you're younger, you've got maybe less means, but you've got more time and less responsibility. But don't wait for those experiences. Get out and start experiencing other cultures early in your career, early in your life. It will pay off as you grow.
It's great advice. I love that. All right. Well, Thom, as I suspected, we had a whole bunch more questions that I would love to ask you, but we're coming to the end of our time, and you're always such a wealth of knowledge. Do you have maybe one final nugget of advice for our audience, keeping in mind that the mission of DEI Advisors is around empowering personal success? What last piece of advice would you offer to our audience who are looking to get ahead in their careers?
Yeah. This isn't one, but this is a series of nuggets. I think when you put them all together, form a good piece of advice on empowering personal success. I'd say enjoy the journey. I should probably explain that a little bit, in that oftentimes we get caught up so much in trying to get to a certain spot, or trying to get to a certain position, or trying to climb the corporate ladder, whatever those things are, that we forget to enjoy the position that we're in today and make the best of what we're in today, because we're focused too far into the future. Also, remember that setbacks make you stronger. They make us all stronger. I would say, prove yourself at each position you're in, and then you'll position yourself better to ask for a promotion or to be promoted. Read the room that's around you. So align yourself with those that can help you learn and advance. You always want to have those champions, advocates, mentors, if you will, that you align with, that you're related with, that helps you advance. Be a positive influence in the room. There's so much negativity to navigate in life in general. It's easy to get weighed down by all that and wear all that. But if you're the positive influence in the room, I think people remember you more. Stay curious. Lan, you and I have said it 100 times through today. That's important. We have a core value here at Davidson, says always do what's right. That's important. Conduct yourself and your personal brand with high character, high integrity. Use those as the base point. And then surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. If you do that, you'll look better and you'll often win. So that would be my bucket of advice nuggets.
Those are all really wonderful. And I love that you brought in curiosity one more time, because it's such an important one, and is definitely a theme that has been woven through our conversation today. So thank you very much, Thom, for taking the time to share your thoughts, and also for all you do. I know that you have mentored so many people in our industry and been a great example for how to lead for others. And so I so appreciate you and your time today.
Well, Lan, I love what I do. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by the best, people in the industry. And so I've been gifted with a great team. For me, it's an honor to work alongside them every day, and great people like yourself in our industry that are doing great things all the time. It's the best industry there is. And I love what I do, and I'm excited to come to work every day, even after 35 years.
That is quite the badge of honor. Thank you, Thom.
Thanks,
and for our audience, if you would like to find other great interviews with industry leaders, I hope you'll go to our website, which is deiadvisors.org. Thank you.